Hi, everyone. Sheila Butler with Successful Women Talk. I want to say thank you for joining me today. And as you can see, I have one of the most handsome, successful women that we've ever had on our show. We have today guest Pat Flynn. Hi, Pat.
Hi, how are you doing? I guess Pat is sort of an ambiguous name, so it could be a man or a woman
Well, I
if
like
you were
it.
just hear my name. So
How are you today?
I'm doing excellent. I'm doing excellent. It's a little cloudy, and I'm from San Diego, so we get kind of spoiled. So it's kind of a gray day. But other than that, everything's going really, really well.
Well,
Really,
that's
really well.
terrific. Hey, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. I know a lot of people probably already know a lot about you. I followed you for quite some time. Finally got to meet you in person at New Media Expo, and you are exactly what I thought you would be. Which that's not always the case when you meet someone online. So I love that about you.
Thank you, thank you. And I hope when you say it was exactly what you thought, that's a good thing.
It was a good thing.
Okay, good.
It was
Yeah, I mean, it's so good to meet you. We were at New Media Expo together in January, and it was just, just thank you for all the kind words. And I just love meeting people who listen to my show or read my blog. It's so cool to see the sort of connection we can have with people who we don't even know. So it's funny because a lot of people come up to me and already pretend like they know me, or they do feel like they know me. And so
Yeah.
I really try to make sure when I'm there that I try to get to know them. So I got to know you a little bit too, which is great.
Well, and I think that is such a good point because you meet someone online, you follow them, maybe you Twitter back and forth, and then you meet them in person. Like I'm from Texas, so we're big huggers. So it's
Uh-huh.
kind of I have to stop myself sometimes thinking, oh, I've not really ever met this person in real life. So I'm in their personal space.
Hey, I'm a hugger, so we can totally hug it out.
Well, I love that about you. Hey, listen, I love your story, and when I first jump in, I want to talk about your new book. So I just read it, so I have it on. I ended up getting it on the Snippet app,
Awesome.
which was really pretty cool. So
Thank you.
instead of talking a lot about your story, because I think everybody's kind of heard that, I kind of want to talk a little bit about some things that maybe people don't ask you about as often. But
Perfect.
first, before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about your new book. So how was the process of that? How did you like the Snippet app, and how's it going?
Sure. Well, the book is basically my story, so it's good that we're not going to tell it here for even those who don't know my story. They can go check it out on the book. But it's my story told in a way that I was never able to tell it before. And that's sort of why I chose specifically to sort of launch it on this new app, this new marketplace for authors called Snippet app, because it's not just text. It allows me to include videos and audio and images and also social media, which is really cool. So right inside the book, you'll actually see a lot of interviews with people like my dad, and my wife. I know a lot of people who have been following me for a while were dying to hear from April, and her thoughts on when I got laid off and how much of a support she was for me. And also, like I said, the interview with my dad, that was interesting because when I had gotten laid off, before I started doing entrepreneurship type stuff, he was the one who suggested I go back to school. And, he worked the same job for 45 years. And it was really cool to see sort of his perspective on things from when I got laid off versus where I am now. And then also the social media component is really cool. You can actually tweet right from in the book and join a hashtag conversation with other people who are enjoying the book, and be able to connect with me as well, the author, it's just so cool to see, to have worked on this for a while. And it was pretty hard to work on because, I had written the text and it took about 2 weeks, which was really quick for me considering I spend a lot of time writing usually. But again, it was my story. But then I went to my editor and he's like, okay, so where are we going to publish this? Amazon, or is this going to be a traditional book? I was like, no, this is going to be on the Snippet app. And I told him what it was. And he's like, wow, we haven't even started work on this yet, even though the text was done. So I actually had to. I hired my editor as a producer to help put things together, and then we hired a videographer to put all the videos together, so it was really high quality, and it turned out really well. And the reaction from the audience and those who have read it, watched it, and gone through it have been amazing. I've got a lot of emails from people saying it has changed their life, which is awesome. Got a number of people who told me that they cried while reading it, and as much as I didn't write it to make people cry. It's kind of cool that like they're actually connecting on that emotional level. And so I had sold a few thousand copies off of the Snippet app marketplace, which is just again amazing. And then I just recently launched it on Amazon because the Snippet app is only available for iOS, so only iPhone and iPad. So that left a whole bunch of people out who couldn't read it. So my team and we just launched it on Amazon, and just in less than 24 hours, it became the #1 best-selling small business and entrepreneurship book on Amazon, like not just Kindle books, but all books. And so that's just It's pretty incredible. I can now say I'm a best-selling author, and just to be in the same company as some of the books that I've read and other people who have inspired me, it's just so cool. I mean, just this content production stuff and just sharing what you know and your story online. It's just amazing. I mean,
Yeah, and Pat, what I found interesting is as I have listened to you on multiple interviews, so I think I really know your story pretty well. But reading the book, it wasn't like hearing the same story again. It was really very different. And also having the video component and the social media, because I tweeted out, I wanted to try it. I tweeted out, you responded. It was really, really cool. And I don't know if it was just different. It was the same story, but it just had a different feel to me.
Right. Yeah, I really wanted people to feel like they were there with me as the journey was going along. And like from sitting in the same room in the restaurant with me when I had landed my architecture position, and actually including dialogue, which I've never really done on the blog before. And so you hear what people are saying and then how I react or what's going through my head. Again, it was a great way for me to go deeper into the story. And yeah, I've told it thousands of times before, but never was I able to sort of share the story this way.
Yeah, and like you said, maybe just you sitting at the table, the same Panera bread table, and you riding the same
Yeah.
train, excuse me, and then interacting, having your wife, and then your dad. I mean, it just pulled the whole story together. It was
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And then my kids were like in the middle of the interview, I think the one with April, just like my kids would just run across the street. It's like that's real life right there.
That is real life, isn't it?
It is real life.
Yeah, which is actually kind of what I want to talk with you today. I want to talk a little bit about your systems, but I want to talk. I know you're a family guy, and your book really points that out as well. And I think those of us that follow you kind of know that. But it is tough balancing both. I know it is for a mom. I'm sure it is for dad as well. So I want to talk about your work-life rhythm, how you do work, how you work that around your family, because I know you put a lot of work into your content, etc. So what is your work-life rhythm?
Well, it's always changing, and I think that's a result of the kids always changing because me and my wife's schedule is sort of just around what they do. And I think a lot of mothers will understand that, things change and you kind of have to adapt. And because the kids aren't going to change when you want them to change, they're going to change when they want to change. And so a lot of it is stemmed and based off of the kids' schedule. And I'll get into my schedule really quick, but I just wanted to say and give a shout out to my wife, April, and all the other women out there who have kids who you guys are the hardest working people in the world, and you don't get enough credit. And that's something I want to make sure I give to my wife and everybody out there because I go to all these conferences. I mean, one time I went to this conference and people treat me really well, and I'm very fortunate for that. And they take me out to these nice dinners. One time I texted my wife this I think it was like a lamb of rack or something. I don't even eat that, but it was a really fancy dinner. I texted her that picture. I was like, check this out. Look what I'm eating. She texted me back. And it's like a picture of a half-eaten bowl of mac and cheese. And that's what I was like, man, you're like so awesome that you are being able, you're allowing me to go out and do this while you're here with the kids. And, she obviously, she enjoys spending time with them, but it's tough. And I know because I've taken the kids on my own before and I couldn't do what she does as often as she does. So shout out to all of you. Oh, totally. So my schedule, the way it is now, and again, it wasn't always like this. Actually, let me start at the beginning. It was pretty tough at first to, come from someone who started, doing business on my own, getting married, and that was fine. And then the kids came along and it kind of screwed everything up as far as how organized everything was or when I could do certain things. And it was really tough at first. And I found myself often being conflicted and sort of being where I wasn't at that time. And what I mean by that is sometimes when I would be with my family, it's family time, I would still be thinking about my business in the back of my head. And I think that's something that all entrepreneurs or people who do business online, that have a hard time with. And it was really hard for me at first because as someone who runs their own business, you can always do more work and there's always things to think about. And so it was really hard to kind of create that line between personal life and work life. And then on the flip side, when I was working, sometimes I would just want to be with my kids and be thinking about them. So I wasn't focused with my work as much as I should be. And that's just not fair to anybody. It's not fair to my kids and my wife when I'm with them. It's not fair to my work and my audience who, I should be mentally where I am physically. And so I did a lot of things and experimenting and a lot of communication with my wife. I think that was the biggest thing. At first, this was just sort of happening. And again, we were just kind of thrown into this. position of being new parents, as all new parents are, and discovering things along the way. And what really helped was just her and I sitting down and talking about what we each needed and what we each needed to do and when, and sort of kind of creating a flexible sort of schedule, or at least an understanding that when certain things happen, this is the way it is, and we need the other person to back the other person up when the time is right. So let me just go through kind of how my schedule is now and kind of how we work together. So I wake up with my kids. I wake up with my son and my daughter. Luckily, she's at the age now where she's starting to be spoon-fed, so my wife doesn't have to be like breastfeeding all the time, but she still does. And but basically, I wake up with the kids and I play with them all morning. And I'm in personal mode, I'm in kids mode, and that's it. I let my wife sleep in. I mean, we have a kind of really interesting schedule. She sleeps in until maybe 10 or 11 a.m., which I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's so awesome. But that, that's our agreement. But then after we have lunch, then I get time to work. Like right now, I think it's like 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. right now. This is my time to work in the office. And again, that's really important that I have an office, of actual physical space where I can be in separated from everything else that's going on in the house. So it kind of makes sure that I'm focused on this, and that's all I'm focusing on. And I know a lot of people, even though they have home offices, they might need to be sort of away for a little bit. So maybe a co-op space or something like that, or actually have an office outside of the house. But for me, having an actual physical office in the house works to sort of create that barrier between personal life and work life. So when I'm in the office, the door's closed, computer's on, boom, I'm in work mode like I am right now, and I'm focused. And I've just sort of learned to become really focused when I work, because I don't know if I'm going to get all the time that I should have during the day. So when I'm working, no distractions, no Facebook, Twitter, I'm focused, and I know what I'm going to do before I get into it, because I already set that from the previous day. Now, after I work for a couple hours in the afternoon, I'll come back out, and my wife will be playing with the kids, and we'll do whatever we need to do during the afternoon, shopping, or go to Target, or sometimes if we just feel like it, we'll go to SeaWorld. And again, that's the benefit of having that flexible schedule and working for yourself. You can choose to do things when you want to, although you don't always have to be on this kind of no schedule program. It's really important to still have that schedule, but it's flexible, which is awesome. And so we'll go out and do whatever, and then we'll come back, have dinner. And then when we put the kids down at around 8 p.m., that's when things start to happen around the house that we couldn't do during the day, because we wanted to be and are only able to focus on the kids. So when the kids go down at night, that's when I get most of my work done. That's when I feel like I'm the most creative. That's when I'm the most productive. That's when I do my blog posts. That's when I do my big creative thinking stuff. The afternoon work session, like we're doing right now, is just for the interviews. Because out of respect for other people's time, I don't want people to have to stay up late to interview me. And then also for any sort of administrative type of stuff. But at night, that's when the creative stuff and the juices start flowing. My wife, that's when she takes care of the laundry in the house and cleaning and all that stuff. If there is not a particular project that I'm working on, or an event that I have to prepare for, like speaking, and I feel like I'll have some free time, I will more than likely go downstairs and not work that night. And that's, again, the beauty of having sort of passive income businesses. They're still going to be working for you, even though you're not necessarily there all the time. So we'll watch a movie together, or we will just go downstairs and talk. And then I typically go to bed around 2 a.m. So I work between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. with intermittent breaks. And that's my crazy schedule. And then it all happens again. So
now I know in your book, when your dad starts talking about you don't get enough sleep, in his opinion, you obviously don't need it.
He always says that. He always says that. And I've learned to, and maybe this probably isn't the healthiest thing, but ever since college, and I went to school for architecture, architects don't sleep ever. And I remember staying up one time 72 hours straight to finish a project. I've sort of just learned how to survive off of little sleep. And I know there's like a 1 or 2% of the population that actually doesn't need that amount of that much sleep, and maybe I'm one of them. I don't know how you would even check, but I don't know. Right now I'm in the hustle mode. When I have the kids to focus on, but when I'm working, I'm in hustle mode. And as Gary Vaynerchuk, who wrote Crush It, says, sometimes you just have to sacrifice things like sleep if you want to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, you have to choose. I know a lot. I just wrote a blog post about the fact that a lot of people say, I didn't have time to do that, or I don't have enough time. So, what I started about a year ago was I realized we all have the same amount of time. I've changed my script. So now I say I didn't make the time to do that. So it helps with my mindset, around that as well.
Right. I like that. I didn't make the time to do it because you're right. We all have the same time. We're all on the same playing field. It's just how we end up being efficient with it and using it to
You
our
know,
advantage.
I love that you do have. I don't like to say balance because I think that means you have to give up one for the other. But it sounds like you and your wife and your family have a really good flow, and that's why I wanted to talk about this because you are successful. A lot of people look up to you, and I think you said something that was really key, which is communication. So you and April have really great communication about what her needs are and what your needs are. And I know, I do a little bit of both. I'm a stay-at-home mom. On some days, my kids are here. On some days, they go to preschool. By the end of the day that they're here all day, I'm done. I've had the most amount of Play-Doh, coloring, any of those things that I just can't, and
Yes.
I need to be creative. So it is hard, and I love that you guys have that communication there. It's key.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's key for being able to get stuff done in business, and it's key to having a good relationship. I mean, you just have to communicate. And also another important thing that we do together, although we haven't done it since our daughter was born, our youngest, because she just mommy needs to be with her most of the time. Before she was born, and probably about a year after she will have born. So maybe I think that's like 3 months from now, when she's a year old, we're going to start going on date nights again. Date
That's
nights
great.
once a week. We would just be me and April. We give the kid. We would give Keone, our son, to grandma and grandpa. When Kailani is old enough, we'll give both of the kids to the grandparents for 3 or 4 hours every Thursday is when we would do it. And that time alone together was just so important. Not because we don't want to be with our kids and we don't want to be around them all the time, but it's because it's nice to have that space and just be alone together
Yeah.
and just talk and reflect. And oftentimes we just end up talking about our kids the whole time,
But it's
but it's
still
just
you.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's really important. Anybody else who I've talked to who does the date night thing cherishes that a lot and really makes it a priority. And I think that's something that I would offer to anybody out there listening who isn't yet doing that. And it was tough at first because we had to kind of get into the groove, but then it became something we looked forward to every week.
Yeah.
We would try a different restaurant, or we would just stay at home and cook something. It doesn't have to be expensive. It's just time alone to be together. Even just going on like a walk every once in a while helps too.
Anything. Another thing you said is, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, if you're unhappy at home, you're never going to be overly happy in your career, and vice versa. You have to have that. They have to be combined somehow. You have to be happy at home to be happy at work, and you have to have that balance, because if you're not, you'll never be successful at either. Like you said, you struggled back and forth, worrying about your family when you were working, worrying about your work when you were familying. So it's tough. So it sounds like you batch things and you're pretty tight on your schedule. What productivity tools or apps do you use to help you stay organized? Like, what's your framework?
Well, there's a few things that I use every day that I absolutely cherish. My calendar is good because I don't have to remember stuff that I have to do, like interviews like today. It's all in my calendar. So whenever I get a new appointment or something, it's in my calendar, and that's synced to my phone. If ever I get like a phone call or something, it's just there and it's easy. And so that stuff doesn't mess up, because I know that once you start missing deadlines or appointments and stuff, everything else falls apart. It just ruins your day. So I really make sure to stay on top of what I need to do and when, as far as appointments and business stuff. I also use Evernote quite a bit to keep track of notes and ideas, because as an entrepreneur, and you're all probably like this too, is like you just get these ideas all the time, or things that you could do to improve your business. And even though it's not always possible to control when those ideas come out, for instance, they might come out when you're with your family. You don't want to forget those still. So sometimes when I am with my family, I'll pop an idea in my head and I can put it in Evernote, either by notes or by the voice thing, and then I know it's taken care of and I can worry about that later. It's just like a little break to just take a note down and put it aside, as opposed to thinking about that and then keep thinking about it and then, oh, I forgot I'm playing with the kids now. It's like
Yep.
that 5 seconds, that 10 seconds to just jot it down gives me the comfort that it's there and I can just put it away, so I can go and focus on what I
Because
need to
if you
focus on
don't,
again.
you're going to continue to
I think
worry about it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Another thing, another great tool that I just picked up recently is the Mailbox app, which is on I think it's on iPhone and iOS.
Yep.
It's called Mailbox. It's not the one that comes with Your iPhone. It's when you download Call
Yeah,
Mailbox. And
I
what I love
just
about
got
that
one.
one is, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. If you haven't downloaded it yet, you're gonna find that when you do, it's gonna put you on a waiting list, which is
Right.
terrible. But it's just the way they market it, and it's actually pretty genius because when I was on there, there was 700,000 people in front of me, and so I was like, okay, this must be awesome, right? So I
Yeah.
got it, and it is awesome. And the reason I like it, it works similarly to the Mail app, the regular one, except you can do certain things like if you swipe halfway to the left, you can have it send you that same email again later. So depending on how important it is, you can have it send you an email later this evening. You can have it send you an email during the weekend, whenever you want. And it's pretty cool. So the really important emails I'll answer. And also, then that's another thing, just making sure you know when you're checking emails. Because I know a lot of people who are in family time, and you see them at the park with their kids, but then they're on their phone, so they're not even paying attention. I mean, I don't want to be that. And I was there. So
I
I've
was
just
there
made sure
too.
that yeah, I have specific times or moments when I'm allowed to check email. And that's email is crazy. I mean, email is such a big disease, I think, that a lot of people don't know they have. So just controlling it is the best we can do, and controlling when you read it is really important too. And that app just helps sort of organize things. You can put different emails into different categories, and you can just sort of organize your inbox and keep a straighter head when you get back to work mode later on. Gosh, I love using there's gosh, I can't even. Let me look at my desktop. I'm just like, I got so many things. Yeah, I really think it's just choosing when to do certain things.
Sure.
I mean, that's not a particular tool, but it's just when can I go on Twitter? When can I go on Facebook? And when to go on YouTube? And you have to also give yourself some time for play. When I have my work schedule between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m., I put like 15 minutes in every hour or so to go on YouTube and mess around and just go into this spiral of YouTube videos, right?
It's good for
Watching
your brain.
Oh yeah, totally. It just
Yeah.
kind of resets you and then gets you back on work mode. I have specific moments when I do go on Facebook or Twitter, because I know that stuff is not going to help me finish the task that I need to finish. But kind of getting out of work mode every once in a while, resetting your brain is good. And when you can converse with people and just talk about whatever on those social media platforms, it's always helpful. But again, once that 15 minutes is over, you go back. It's sort of like the Pomodoro technique, I
Right.
think is
Yeah.
what it's called.
Hmm.
Timer, work, break, go back on your timer to work again. There's another thing. This might sound kind of weird. I don't know how many coffee drinkers are out there, but there's this coffee that I just recently discovered called bulletproof coffee. Have you heard of this?
I have heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was talking about it. I'm like, what is this? They're like, it's gonna change your life. I'm like, no, but I'll give it a shot. So it's coffee. It's like you can get any old coffee, but there's organic coffee is good, and you actually put grass-fed butter in it, like butter, like 2 tablespoons of butter, and then coconut oil, and you blend it, and it's the creamiest, most like rich coffee you'll ever have. And if you're a coffee drinker, you'll love it. But what it does is it just gives you a ton of energy, like. The grass fed has to be grass fed butter. I know this is probably a weird tip, and some of you are like,
I
what?
love it.
But it's grass fed butter, just a little bit of butter, and also coconut oil, and that just is such healthy oil for your body to give you energy, and it's literally like a 5 hour energy shot without the crash, without the bad health things. I mean, yes, there's caffeine in it, but it's such a good. I mean, I start my day with that, and I'm just so focused. And at that point, when I'm taking it allows me to be focused on my kids, which is really important. So I could be there with them and not still be in that sort of like, oh, I just woke up
Yeah.
mode.
Let Daddy take a little nap.
Yeah, right. I've done that before. I like woke up with them. I just took a nap
I've
with my
been
son.
reading and I wake up and my son's like, "Mommy, you didn't finish." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, here I am. I'm gonna
Yeah,
finish
I
now."
mean,
Hey, let me ask you,
so,
what is your one guilty pleasure that people would maybe or may not be surprised, other than your
oh
bulletproof coffee?
gosh, does this have to do with productivity or just anything?
Anything for fun.
Nick,
Anything fun about Pat Flynn that you're
no, there's a lot, and I'm trying to put the filter in my head really quick before I say this. Um, I like Nickelodeon a lot.
now.
Like we
Did
don't
you
watch
like
much.
Nickelodeon BC? I call my life BC before children, and then my life now.
I did like it before children, but that was when I was still a kid.
Yeah.
And for some reason, after the kids came, we started watching Nickelodeon again. Not with the kids, like after they're asleep. but there, I don't know. I just
You
love
watch
Nickel.
Nick.
Like I like Big Time Rush and Victorious and iCarly, which just ended, which was really sad. And you know, little things like that. I like. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I just that's really weird.
So you've
I
recently.
also.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I like to dance too, like when I'm alone. That's how I get my nerves out. And really funny story, really quick. I was at this thing called Creative Live in Seattle a couple of weeks ago, where they do live streaming of teachers like teaching stuff. And I was there with my friend Derek, and we were teaching a workshop. And every hour there'd be a 15-minute break between the workshops. And so it was my turn to speak. And so I went in the room, nobody was in there, and because nobody was there, I was like, okay, I'm nervous, I'm just gonna dance it out. So I like to dance when I get nervous. So I was dancing, and somebody came in, they were like, Pat, you know this is live right now, right? And I was like, what? So they do live streaming the whole time. They just make it black and white between the sessions. But I was there
Were
live
you
on the
break
internet.
dancing?
Yeah, I was like doing break dancing, like doing that whole thing for like 10 minutes, and I didn't know anybody was watching, but thousands of people on the internet were watching me. And then I was just like, man, I already embarrassed myself. I'll just keep dancing. And then everybody started coming, and we did like a little dance party. So it was really cool. It got my nerves out. So I like to dance when nobody's there.
I love that. You know what I love about you, Pat, and you do seem very calm, and when you speak, you're a great speaker. But you
Thank
really spend a lot of time preparing. You spend a lot of time preparing because you want it to be right. And what I at New Media Expo, I know you'd had an issue with slides before that. At New Media Expo, something happened with the sound. You know, some people would be so flustered that they're just done. I'm just done. But you were like, okay, I guess this is going to happen every time I speak. I love how you handled that.
Thank you. I remember, you know, when I'm sort of when I'm actually speaking, like when I'm doing it live, I'm sort of like in the zone, you know, so I don't even know what I'm doing. And I remember watching that later in a recording. I was like, wow, I was actually really clever. Like I don't know how that happened. You know, yeah. So
I think it speaks
for
well
some
for
reason,
your character.
yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's just whenever I speak, something goes wrong, and so I'm just expecting it every time. So.
You know, Pat, one more thing I'm going to bring up is, and I don't want to give away everything in your book, but there was something you said in your book that I really liked, and it was in one of your videos, and you were talking about something I think you would tell your 21-year-old self now, and it's that to meet as many people as you can. And
Mm-hmm.
I was doing an interview earlier with someone, and she said that same thing, and I think that is so important, and I love that you bring that up.
Yeah, this video is just a fun little experiment we did. Because with the snippet app, it's cool because we can publish chapters later, like it's live, and then we can add new ones. So we added a new one, and we added a bonus chapter, and it just was like, hey, this is a video for my younger self. And so I had given that tip, and a lot of people said the exact same thing as you, how important that actually is. And every sort of success I've had in my past has been the result of someone else that I knew. And it's just, you just got to meet people, you know, and it's tough. And at first, you know, I was a total introvert. I still think I am, but I know the benefit of going out there and meeting people. And I find that once you start to talk to someone, the nerves go away. And so it's really important just to initiate that conversation. So whether you're a young person, you're still in school, talk to as many people as possible, professors, whatever. When you're in the workplace, just talk to anybody and try to learn as much as possible, and go out there and meet people in places where you don't have to be, like meetups or conventions and things like that. I mean, I remember going to Blog World Expo, my very first one in 2010. I bought a ticket for like $600 to attend all the sessions. I didn't go to one session because I was just in the hallways talking to everybody the whole time. Some of those connections that I made at that very moment are now just incredible friendships, but also business partners now. I remember meeting Corbett Barr for the first time, for example, at one of those just in between sessions, between the sessions at New Media Expo way back then.
You
So
never know what role that person may play in your life one day, or what role you may be able to play in theirs.
Absolutely.
And listen, if you were going to give someone a tip on maybe creating a book like you just did, what tip would you give them? And sharing your story. You know, some people are afraid to put themselves out there, but I think we're getting better about knowing you need to be a little bit more personal. But let's say you've got a mompreneur out there, you have a dadpreneur out there. How do they get past that. And what advice would you give them on, finding that balance, finding systems, finding a balance so that they can live both, have a happy life and a happy family?
Yeah, well, as far as technically like writing the book, the very first step you should do is create a mind map. I don't know if you thought what a mind map is, but I love it. It's sort of like creating an outline, except it's more jumbled. So you just start with an idea and you just branch out and just whatever pops into your brain, you write out and you sort of map it out, the connections between things. And what that does is you'll see at the end, you have this whole web of stuff and you can see what the relationships are between each of them. And then each of those different pods of relationships become like a chapter or a section in your book. I mean, that has been the best tip anyone's ever given me as far as, because when you're starting to write something, or even if you're creating content online or you're doing a course or something, just trying to organize things is really hard. But when you just kind of put whatever's in your head on paper and can start to see the relationships between each of the things, then the way it should be structured just becomes very apparent. And then it's just a matter of writing and getting things done. As far as putting yourself out there, I know that's difficult for some people, and I know I maybe do it a little bit more than others, but I will tell you that that's the reason why people follow me. And even, people want to do business with people nowadays.
That's my favorite thing to say.
My buddy Chris Ducker puts it this way. He said, back then it was all about B2B and B2C, but today it's about P2P. Person to person. Even if you're a business or a brand, you have to become a person. That's why you see big brands on Twitter now, on Facebook, because they know that that's how they get to become social or become like a person to who their audience is. I mean, there's nothing more important than that. And if you just think about it really quick, who do you want to connect with? You don't want to connect with someone who's sort of hiding behind a fake name or just a business card or logo. You want to make all your friends have names. I mean, why wouldn't you want people to be friends with you? So you would need to share your name too, at least. And yes, you can use a pen name if you want, if you're scared about that. And a lot of people have done that before, and that's fine. But you have to be real and you have to be yourself. And I think that's really important to get to have your audience, whoever that audience may be, get to know really who you are. And so for me, for example, I mean, it's really funny. I go to these conferences. I went to one in San Diego just a couple of days ago. I'm in San Diego. It's actually really weird having a conference in your own hometown. I was like, do I stay at home or do I go to the hotel? But anyway, Michael Stelzner from Social Media Examiner, he took all of it. He was the one who put the conference on. He took us all out on this dinner cruise. And on the cruise, this woman comes up to me and she's like looking at me kind of funny. I thought I had maybe something on me. And she said, "Are you Pat Flynn?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm Pat Flynn." She's like, "Pat, I love your podcast. I've listened to every single episode. Thank you." And I was like, "That's so cool." And then I always ask this question to somebody who tells me they listen to my podcast. I say, "Well, what do you remember?" And I love that question. It's so general. I always get exactly what people remember. I'm not steering them in a certain direction. And this is what she said. She said, "Pat, I remember you were a big baby." And I was like, "What? Like what?" And she's like, No. Yeah, I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "No, in one of your episodes, you just randomly said that you were an 11-pound, 12-ounce baby when you were born," which is true. And I set a record at the hospital that day. But what's really interesting is that out of all the episodes she's listened to and all the information I've given, that's what she pulled out. And that's something that you would remember about a friend, or you would remember about a family member, not somebody you've never met before. Yet this is what she was saying. So you don't have to share all the facts about you or reveal really personal things. But little things like that go a really long way. And that's how you can start to build that relationship and feel connected, or have your audience feel connected with you, I think.
Oh, I love that. And I totally agree. It is, I think when you start to put yourself out there a little bit, then you seem more authentic, and then it becomes more and more comfortable. And I think
right.
that's how you grow loyal fans.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And for her, I ended up talking to her a little bit later. She was like, "You know what? I had a big baby when I was little." So that little fact connected with her. Right, exactly. And that's why, this was actually a good consequence of the fact that at the beginning of each of my podcast episodes, I put a little random fact about me. Like one of them was like, I have a big fear of spiders.
Another one was Target at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, or I did marching band, or I won my fantasy football league last year, and each of those little ones, different people can connect to.
Yeah.
And so I have a contingency of people who are all fantasy football freaks who like me even more now because they know I play the same game as them. And so
that's actually one of my most favorite things about your podcast, because I like that as well, because it's always funny, and I think adding humor to business is really important, but it is a fun fact.
Yeah, and people at the beginning were like, "You're so stupid! Like you're paying this voice guy $300 to record like 50 little tiny things that you could just say yourself." And that like, why would you want to make it harder on yourself and edit the beginning of each of your episodes? You could just have the same intro the whole time. I was like, "No, this is cool. Like, I would want to listen to shows that did this. It would make me interested and excited to hear what the next one would be." And they're like, "Okay, whatever."
It's
and
different.
so I'm like, "Oh, I told you so."
Yeah, I love that. Hey Pat, before I let you go, I want to tell you something I heard today that you and your wife
Sure.
would probably appreciate this. So it was it's about I forget the author, so I will have to put it in the show credits. But I heard something that said when it comes to kids, remember that the days are long, but the years are short.
Oh, it's so good.
And it's so connected
good.
with me. And I thought it would with you and your wife as
Yeah.
well, because I know sometime at the end of the day, I'm like, oh my goodness, I love my kids heart and soul. Hardest job I've ever done. But I love that. The days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah, because my wife and I just talked recently about how fast they're growing up. Because Kailani's starting to babble now, and she can sit up without any help. And my son is like about to go to preschool. It's just crazy.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Pat, I appreciate you sharing a little bit more about yourself, your life. And if someone wanted to connect with you, where would you want to send them?
Probably the best place, just kind of my central hub now. I mean, I know I have a number of different websites, but if you go to patflynn.me, you'll see a link to my blog, my podcast, my book, and some more projects that I'm working on. So probably patflynn.me, and also at patflynn on Twitter. If you say hi, I will promise I say hi back.
And he will. He's a super nice guy. Pat, you're awesome. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye. You know, the world needs you, so don't underestimate your greatness. If you liked today's episode, you can spread the word by using the share buttons on the side. And if you want to learn how to simplify your life and your business, join the community and get our free updates directly to your inbox.